The ad campaign by Balenciaga that included a teddy bear with a harness uh, sent people off the rocker, most of them far right. And it was also one of those on the razor's edge expressions. It was a message from a fashion house that is discussing something that is just razor thin on the razor's edge of what is expression and what is obscene based on it having no other value but some sort of a prurient interest. A prurient interest is an overtly sexual interest. Now, you have to wonder what is the prurient interest in Balenciaga's um, ad campaign? There isn't a prurient interest simply because the subject sitting there doesn't have the interest that we speak of when we see a harness that looks a lot like a bondage harness on a teddy bear. Somebody who is into bondage, somebody who knows that culture, somebody who's even watched 50 Shades of Grey, has an idea of what that implies. But the child didn't. But the point here is of child endangerment. And that is a serious concern. But the question this raises is, what are we willing to accept and how far are we not willing to accept it? You know, Alex Jones's lies against Sandy Hook spread like wildfire and caused so much pain and suffering that court after court and jury after jury is awarding these parents of Sandy Hook victims billions of dollars in damage. But, not but, and if you look at that, you see what is the harm that was caused. It was pain and suffering. It was peddling a lie on the basis of manipulating the truth around children. And that's where Balenciaga got this wrong about child endangerment, is sending out the message, or at least on a very acute level, the question of that child ever being put into that position. But how else would you express the extreme nature of where expressive rights are going today? And that's the only sense I could make of it, because anything else is just crass and I wouldn't call it obscene, because I wouldn't call it a purely prurient interest with no fundamental expressive value. So it is constitutionally protected speech from where I look at it, but it is in poor taste. But I want to distinguish this from something. We have on one side a fashion house that has come out with an ad campaign that is so risque that it gets to the level of child endangerment while still being protected by the freedom of expression, because it is not purely prurient interest without any artistic or politically value, a message. Now, if you flip it and look at the expression that is peddled by Kash Patel and his children's book, or any children's book that cements into the minds of children a lie about an attack on our republic, therefore priming them for growing up to not having faith in the electoral process and our democracy by way of that. The acute harm that that causes on each child has not been even discussed by the same people who have gone overboard in attacking Balenciaga over having a young girl in an ad where the young girl was neither primed to understand what that teddy bear with a harness was or what those court documents were strewn around her. She was a child model, and that onus of that responsibility lies on the agent and on the parents of that child. And on the flip side of that, however, the harm that is maybe down the road, 10 years down the road, the child in this Balenciaga ad will come and say, this has caused me this harm. And on that, this child very well could have a claim against Balenciaga. But what claim of pain and suffering or harm will that child have who has been disinformed from the get-go by Kash Patel's children's book? That this seditious conspiracy, this insurrection didn't happen. What they are telling you is a lie, despite courts and despite the conviction of Stuart Rhodes and conviction of hundreds and hundreds of other insurrectionists. The book will go and prime children to a lie that will destroy over the course of time their faith in our republic. Now you have to wonder and question, when you put those two together and side by side, why would somebody admonish Balenciaga for what they have done, but not Kash Patel for what he has done? Because the chronic harm to a vastly large number of children acutely would come from Kash Patel's lie that is peddled in his children's book, versus the acute harm that may be caused by this Balenciaga ad on this particular child as she gets older. These are both questions. And these bring into question the responsibility that we have as people and as a society of choosing whether to expose our children not to just what would seem to be a sexual overtness, but also to vastly spread disinformation about the fundamental nature of our government and our politics. They're both relevant and they're both important. And the inconsistency is when somebody talks and discusses one and not the other. And the inconsistency is when they don't admonish both, but also stand up for both, for them having some expressive value.